What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a video. I hope you guys are doing well. We are quarantined here in the U.S., as I'm sure pretty much everyone else in the world is, over this stupid coronavirus. But what are you gonna do? They've already announced that schools are closed for like the next 3 weeks. So if I actually stay sane through this, then it'll be a small miracle. With 24/7 wife and 2 7-year-olds. God help me. But thank goodness I have all of you. You guys are like my therapy session, and I'm gonna need to take advantage of this quarantine from the coronavirus to do more videos. So anyway, these have been sitting here for about a day or two after I took an Instagram photo, so I thought we'd take a look at them. And this was an idea. The idea for this video was from, I want to give credit where credit is due, the Blacked Out Ewoks, who's obviously a friend of mine on YouTube, has his own channel and some beautiful items. He suggested I do this. So this is my entire collection of Bossk figures based on the Power of the Force 2 mold from the mid-1990s. I think the original Bossk came out in 1997, and I've got a couple of carded examples that you guys have probably seen. The one on your left is obviously the Alan Harris signed, autographed version that I just got back from Collector Archive Services. This is the U.S. card, and so we'll take a look at that. Versus this is the Tri logo. You can see the Tri logo here. This was a gift from another YouTuber, Mr. Domo Toys. And so you guys can see the differences in the card backs here. That's one thing we can take a look at. Obviously, the Tri logo European card has all the different languages, and you know they had to condense the photos and everything. You know, obviously, to me the American card back is much prettier, but they have some differences with regard to the figures. This one has the Luke Skywalker Skyhopper, and this is the Rebel Snowspeeder. This does not have any of those, obviously, because of all the language. And then there's some differences on the cards. Now, this might be because this is an earlier card back. I don't know. But I know that the Sand Trooper, we got the Imperial Gunner, Luke Jedi, we got Hammerhead, Jawas. And then over here, you know, I think these are maybe some earlier figures. So I'm not sure what the exact release dates were for all of the Power of the Force 2 figures. I probably should know that, but I don't. But nonetheless, very cool to see the comparison here. This has just got the standard, you know, non-foil, non-hologram color to the card front, and then this one has the foil hologram. So there's probably like 10 or 15 different card backs for each of these figures in the Power of the Force 2 line. But anyway, so those are the carded examples I have. Really nice. Now, the reason for the video is I just got back this first shot prototype, and this is a fairly common. Let's see if I can get it to focus. That'd be nice. This is a fairly common first shot, but they're going up in price. My throat's a little bit dry, guys. I'm sorry, but you know, a lot of people call this like a Frankenstein prototype because of all the different color matches. You've got like a darker brown and a white for the chest, and a little bit lighter brown for, you know, the crotch area, and then the same kind of brown, chocolate brown for the arms, and then you have this green head, which makes it so cool. I love that. Now the weapon, as I mentioned when I unboxed this weapon is also a first shot prototype, so it's a different color than the factory example. So let's take a look at that. You can kind of see. Let's get them the same direction here, but you can see that the factory sealed example, the retail example, is a totally different color than the prototype. You can find, you know, the licensed figure, or excuse me, the retail figure came with 2 weapons, a smaller pistol as well as the rifle that I just showed you. Now, my example only had the prototype rifle. But I have seen a few since I sent this one in. I sent these in like 8 months ago. CAS just takes a long time with this bootlegs and prototypes and things. But since I sent this one in, I did see another one pop up, I believe, on eBay that that was that had both weapons of it, both weapons in prototype form. So they do show up occasionally. And the figure itself, there's a friend of mine named Darren. Dylan, excuse me. He's got 4 or 5 different first shot prototype Power of the Force 2 Bossk, and there are a number of different colors. I've seen yellow heads, kind of very similar shade to this yellow of the jumpsuit, but yellows and browns and greens. I mean, there's all kinds of different colors, so it's not particularly difficult to find. Another buddy of mine named Stuart, he actually just got this figure along with a bunch of prototype heads and torsos and legs. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but you can pick them up for, I'd say, on the low end probably $150, on the high end maybe $250. It just depends on the condition and how complete it is and things like that. If my phone, if y'all can bear with me for just a second, I forgot to shut off my phone, so it stops making notification noises. So let's do that. There we go. Okay, so I took care of that. Now, what about grading prototypes? Getting prototypes graded is pretty expensive. I think Collector Archive typically charges about $100 now. It used to be about 80 or 85, somewhere in there, but they had a price increase maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And one of those items that was affected was prototypes. And they typically charge between, I think, about 100 to 110 for a standard 3 3/4 inch prototype. And that's about in line with what AFA charges. I don't know what UKG charges for theirs, but they do come with a larger certificate of authenticity. They got to do quite a bit more research on prototypes to make sure that they're legitimate. So it does come with a larger, not the half size statement of archival. This is a certificate of authenticity. So it's a little different, and they just confirm that it's an actual prototype. And the prototypes come in all kinds of different stages. Obviously, you can have ones with date stamps, which I don't even know if this one had I think this one did have the date stamps. Yeah, it's hard to see with the lighting. Let's see if I can get to focus. Come on, buddy, focus for me. This one appears to have the date stamps. I don't know if that's coming through or not, but you can kind of see them there. But there's ones obviously without the date stamps that you can get. Those are considered, earlier stage, since they're probably still fine-tuning the manufacturing, so they don't have date stamps on them. This is probably a later stage or mid to late stage prototype, since the mold is basically 100% done, and the date stamps are on the feet. So they're probably just fine-tuning, colors and things like that, or testing the mold to make sure that it's assembling correctly before they test it with the final paint spray. And you can find what's called FEPs, final engineering prototypes, that have a paint scheme very similar to the final retail figure. You see those on eBay a lot. But my only caution, if you decide to get into prototypes, my only caution is to be very, very careful about buying them, because there are fakes out there. A lot of people will, fake them, and I've seen fake Bossk prototypes where they're, either stripped. They just strip the paint off of a retail figure, and you can tell that because there's more like swirls on the plastic, and that's probably from the stripping process. There was one on eBay, I think, 6 months ago or less, that was a fake prototype, and so you got to be really careful about that. I just buy from trusted sources. Now, eBay is one source for engineering prototypes, but there's a couple of really good groups on Facebook if you are interested. There's one called the Prototype Exchange. That is a fantastic group, and it's not just Star Wars; it's every kind of toy. I mean, I just like going on that Facebook group just to see all the different prototypes across every single toy line. It just blows your mind, and most of it's modern stuff, but there is vintage stuff on there, obviously very expensive and well outside my budget. But But if you want to see lots of cool modern prototypes across every kind of toy line, Prototype Exchange is probably the best one. There's another one called Pre-Pro, all one word, Pre-Pro, and that one is mainly GI Joe. But Prototype Exchange is awesome. I would definitely encourage you to go check that group out. There's and you know, people have reasonable prices on them too. They're not like super overpriced. You can find some wonderful modern Saga and even later episode 1 figures, episode 2, etc. prototypes on the Prototype Exchange for very reasonable prices, $75, $50, $100. So that's kind of the going rate, I think, for modern prototypes. And I'm not including Power of the Force 2 in that. I mean, most Power of the Force 2 you're going to be paying a little bit more. I'd say minimum $150 to $200 and higher. I mean, I've seen some like some Leia's, for example, have gone for $1,000 plus. It just depends on rarity and how often they come up. But this Bossk is a fairly common one, so you could $150 should pick you up a really nice Bossk easily. And then, you know, I just because I had them, you know, I thought we'd maybe take a closer look at the prototype versus the two fairly rare Oratet Russian bootleg Bossk figures. Obviously, the pink one, which I've talked about at length, is the very common one, but this metallic green one, I believe, is only number 3 that has been located in the world to date. And I mean, it's basically a straight copy. And you know, they just what they did was they molded all of these parts, all the green parts, separately, and then just it has plug-in feet, plug-in hands, and a plug-in head. They pop off really easily. But whereas the Power of the Force 2 figures did not have separate feet or separate legs, and the head was, I think, mounted in. I don't think you can pop the heads off these Power of the Force 2 figures. Maybe you can. Some other minor differences that are noticeable. You know, there's more leg showing, more ankle showing. If you got a foot fetish, you'd probably want to go with the prototype or the retail figure, versus this one, which has, you know, a little bit less scales showing. You can see there versus here. The arms are very similar, but you know, probably more legs showing or more arms showing. Excuse me. But the figures themselves are basically the same. I mean, obviously this is a more rudimentary mold since it's basically a copycat, but pretty cool. And we can do a quick back shot here if you want to see the back. But it's kind of cool to see, you know, a prototype versus the Russian bootleg. And you know, as I've talked about these at length, so I'm not going to bore you too much more with them. But this is, I think, the 4th one ever found with this metallic orange, versus the number 3 for the green. But anyway, it's kind of cool just to compare the retail product in engineering form versus the Russian bootleg. So kind of cool. Anyway, that's all I really had. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the prototype, but you know, Collector Archive Services will grade, and I think AFA will as well, but Collector Archive Services, if the prototype is not complete, which this one is not, since it doesn't have the other gun, they will grade it, you know, with whatever you have, whether it's just a figure or partial accessories, etc. AFA used to not grade prototypes if they are not complete, but that's not true anymore, because I have a Snaggletooth modern Snaggletooth prototype that is incomplete, and they graded that. I bought that one already graded, but so I guess AFA is loosening the reins a little bit and is willing to grade prototypes that are not complete with accessories. So what else about prototypes? Yeah, I mean, really, it's just that the thing to keep in mind is that, you know, for some of these modern prototypes, if you collect graded prototypes, which there's not a lot of you out there, but if there are, you know, oftentimes with these modern prototypes that cost 50 or 75 or $100, you're going to be paying as much or more in some cases just to get it graded. So just keep that in mind. You know, you don't have to grade it, obviously. You can just display it without. But if you're looking to get it authenticated and displayed, you know, in a case, then just keep in mind that it's not like grading a loose figure that costs, you know, a typical loose figure costs $35 to get graded, roughly. That's not the case with prototypes. You're going to be spending quite a bit more money, about 3 times as much. So, but anyway, that's all I really had. I don't know. I've had these sitting up here for a little while, and I haven't had a chance to kind of talk more about this recent arrival, but it looks awesome having all these together. I do have a pink one, which is the pink Russian Ortet. I've got one of those in grading. I just figured I might as well grade that one too. So that'll be another one to add to this collection. I think the only other one I would really like to have with this mold would be the Italian card back, the Gig Italian Power of the Force to Bossk. I've seen 1 or 2 on eBay, but they've always been pretty rough condition. They're hard to find in good condition. That would be the only other one I'd probably want, or maybe a prototype with a different color scheme. So anyway, once again, I somehow managed to talk for 16 minutes. Thanks for watching. Bye.